Malibu Rehab Center, 2001. Matthew Perry walks into his assigned room expecting privacy and silence. Instead, he finds a 19-year-old kid who looks at him and says, "Hey, roommate, I'm Jake. What's your story?" The boy had no idea he was talking to Chandler Bing. What happened next would change both their lives. It was August 15th, 2001, when Matthew Perry pushed open the door to room 247 at the Promises Treatment Center in Malibu, carrying nothing but a small duffel bag and the weight of a career that was slowly killing him. He had expected many things from his second attempt at rehabilitation: privacy, medical supervision, perhaps the kind of celebrity treatment that money and fame typically guaranteed. What he absolutely had not expected was to find a skinny teenager with messy brown hair sitting cross-legged on one of the twin beds, reading a battered paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye. The kid looked up with bright, curious eyes that held no recognition whatsoever, and with the kind of genuine smile that Matthew hadn't seen directed at him in years, said, "Hey, roommate, I'm Jake. What's your story?" Matthew Perry stood frozen in the doorway, his hand still gripping the door handle, staring at this 19-year-old who was looking at him like he was just another human being instead of one of the most recognizable faces on television. For the past 7 years, every interaction Matthew had experienced began with that flash of recognition, that moment when people's expressions shifted from normal to starstruck, when conversations became performances rather than genuine exchanges. But Jake Morrison, as Matthew would learn over the following days, genuinely had no idea who he was. Jake had grown up in rural Montana on his family's ranch, where television reception was spotty at best, and popular culture felt like something that happened to other people in faraway places. He had come to Promises not because he had celebrity money or connections, but because his parents had mortgaged their ranch to pay for treatment after his methamphetamine addiction had nearly killed him during his freshman year at UCLA. "I'm Matt," Matthew replied carefully, still processing this unprecedented situation. In rehab, he had been told, first names only were the rule. No last names, no detailed personal histories, no discussions of careers or achievements, just people trying to get clean, trying to rebuild their lives one day at a time. "Cool, Matt. Mind if I ask what brought you here?" Jake's question was delivered with the kind of casual directness that only teenagers possessed, without the careful politeness or awkward tiptoeing that usually characterized people's interactions with Matthew Perry. Matthew set his duffel bag down slowly, considering his answer. For the first time in years, he had the opportunity to introduce himself without the burden of his celebrity identity, without the immediate assumptions and expectations that came with being Chandler Bing. "Pills," he said simply. "Started with a back injury, ended with this." Jake nodded with the kind of understanding that came from someone who had walked a similar path. "Meth for me. Thought it would help me study better, keep up with all the smart kids at UCLA. Turns out it just helped me drop out and nearly die in a dorm room." He gestured to the other bed. "That one's yours. Fair warning, I snore sometimes, and I talk in my sleep when I'm detoxing." Over the next 30 days, Matthew Perry and Jake Morrison would share that small room, navigating the difficult terrain of early recovery together. What began as circumstantial proximity slowly evolved into something neither of them had expected: genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared struggle rather than fame, money, or social status. Jake, as Matthew quickly discovered, was remarkably intelligent despite his young age and limited formal education. He had read extensively during his time on the ranch, possessing a kind of natural wisdom and emotional intelligence that impressed the older man. More importantly, Jake treated Matthew like an equal, not like a celebrity to be impressed by or a mentor to be deferred to, but like another person fighting the same battle they were both fighting. Their daily routine at Promises was structured but intimate. They attended group therapy sessions together, where Matthew was continually amazed by Jake's willingness to be vulnerable and honest about his struggles. Unlike Matthew, who had spent years perfecting the art of deflecting serious conversations with humor, Jake spoke about his addiction with straightforward honesty that was both refreshing and intimidating. "The thing about meth," Jake said during one group session, "is that it makes you feel like you're finally the person you were supposed to be. Smarter, more confident, more capable. But then you realize that person was just a chemical illusion, and when the drugs are gone, you're still the same scared kid you always were." Matthew found himself nodding along, recognizing his own experience with prescription painkillers in Jake's description. The pills had made him feel like he could handle the pressure of fame, the demands of performing, the constant scrutiny of being in the public eye. Without them, he felt exposed and inadequate in ways that terrified him. It was during their third week at Promises that Jake finally made the connection between his roommate, Matt, and the actor Matthew Perry. They were watching television in the common room when a Friends rerun came on, and Jake's eyes widened as he looked back and forth between the screen and Matthew. "Holy shit," Jake whispered, then immediately looked around to make sure none of the counselors had heard him swear. "You're him. You're that guy, from the show." Matthew tensed, waiting for everything to change, for Jake to suddenly start treating him differently, to become starstruck or distant or weird in the way that people often did when they realized who he was. But Jake just stared at him for a moment, then started laughing. "Man, no wonder you looked familiar. I thought maybe you reminded me of someone from back home." Jake shook his head in amazement. "Dude, you're famous. Like really famous. And you're here dealing with the same shit I am. That's either really depressing or really encouraging." "Which one do you think it is?" Matthew asked carefully. Jake considered this seriously. "Encouraging, I guess. If someone who has everything can still end up here, then maybe the rest of us aren't as broken as we think we are. Maybe addiction doesn't care if you're rich or poor, famous or nobody. Maybe we're all just people trying to figure out how to be okay." That conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. Instead of creating distance, Jake's discovery of Matthew's identity actually brought them closer together. Jake began asking Matthew about the entertainment industry, not from a place of starstruck fascination, but out of genuine curiosity about how fame and addiction intersected. "Do you think being famous made your addiction worse?" Jake asked one evening as they were preparing for bed. Matthew thought about this for a long time before answering. "I think it made it easier to hide. When you have money and fame, people don't question your behavior as much. They make excuses for you, enable you, because they want to keep you happy and productive. And the pressure, the constant pressure to be on, to be funny, to be perfect, it made the pills feel necessary instead of optional." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "That's fucked up, man. Sorry, that's messed up. Back home, when I started getting weird from the meth, people called me out on it right away. My dad literally grabbed me by the shoulders and told me I was killing myself. But I guess when you're famous, people are probably scared to do that." "They are," Matthew confirmed. "Or they think it's not their place, or they're worried about their own jobs if they confront you. It's a really lonely way to live, even when you're surrounded by people all the time." As their time at Promises continued, Matthew and Jake developed what could only be described as a brotherhood. They supported each other through the physical and emotional challenges of detox, celebrated small victories together, and provided honest feedback when one of them was struggling or making excuses. Jake had a way of cutting through Matthew's tendency to deflect with humor that was both gentle and effective. "Matt," he would say when Matthew started performing instead of sharing, "I don't need Chandler right now. I need my roommate. Can you try that again, but actually honest this time?" Meanwhile, Matthew found himself becoming a kind of mentor to Jake, helping him process his feelings about his family, his interrupted education, and his uncertain future. Matthew's life experience, combined with his natural intelligence and hard-won wisdom about addiction, made him uniquely qualified to help Jake navigate the complexities of early recovery. "I keep thinking about how disappointed my parents are going to be when I get out of here," Jake confessed one night. "They spent all this money they don't have, and what if I can't stay clean? What if I'm just setting them up for more heartbreak?" "The only thing more heartbreaking for parents than watching their kid struggle with addiction," Matthew replied, "is losing their kid to addiction. You're here, you're fighting, you're getting better. That's not a disappointment. That's hope." Their friendship deepened as they progressed through the program together. They attended family therapy sessions, where Matthew met Jake's parents via video call, a humble, hard-working ranch family who were clearly overwhelmed by their son's struggle, but determined to support his recovery. In return, Jake was one of the few people who got to meet Matthew's family members when they visited, treating them with the same genuine warmth and respect he showed everyone else. The night before they were scheduled to complete the program, Jake and Matthew stayed up late talking about their fears and hopes for the future. Both men knew that leaving the structured environment of rehab would present new challenges, and their friendship had become a source of strength and accountability for both of them. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to be really honest," Jake said. "Do you think we'll stay friends after we leave here? You're going back to Hollywood and being famous and all that, and I'm probably going back to Montana to help my dad with the ranch. Those are pretty different worlds." Matthew looked at his young roommate, this kid who had somehow become one of the most important people in his life over the course of 30 days, and realized that he couldn't imagine navigating recovery without Jake's friendship and honesty. "Jake," he said seriously. You're the first real friend I've made in years. Not someone who wants something from me, not someone who treats me like a celebrity, but someone who actually knows me and likes me anyway. If you think I'm going to let that go, you're crazy. Jake smiled, but his expression remained serious. It's going to be hard, though. People are going to think it's weird that you're friends with some random kid from Montana. And the temptations you're going to face, they're going to be different from mine, but probably harder in some ways. That's exactly why I need you, Matthew replied. You're the only person who's going to call me out when I start making excuses or thinking I'm different from everyone else because I'm famous. You're going to remind me that Matthew Perry and Matt from room 247 are the same person, and that person is worth fighting for. They exchanged contact information, made plans to stay in touch regularly, and promised each other that they would prioritize their recovery above everything else: careers, relationships, family expectations, or social pressure. Matthew Perry left Promises Treatment Center on September 15, 2001, with 30 days of sobriety and a friendship that would prove to be one of the most sustaining relationships of his life. Jake Morrison returned to Montana with the same 30 days and a newfound sense of purpose that had been largely shaped by his relationship with his famous roommate. Over the following years, their friendship continued to evolve and deepen despite the geographic and lifestyle differences that separated them. They spoke on the phone regularly, visited each other when possible, and provided crucial support during difficult moments in each other's recovery journeys. When Matthew relapsed in 2003, Jake was one of the first people he called, and Jake didn't hesitate to fly to Los Angeles to help his friend get back into treatment. When Jake struggled with depression and thoughts of using during his second year of sobriety, Matthew arranged for him to spend a month in Malibu, staying in a guest house and attending meetings together. Jake eventually returned to school, completing his degree in social work and dedicating his career to helping young people struggling with addiction. He often credited his friendship with Matthew as the catalyst for his decision to work in recovery services, saying that their relationship had taught him the importance of authentic connection in the healing process. Matthew, meanwhile, frequently spoke about Jake in interviews about his addiction and recovery, describing their friendship as one of the most transformative relationships of his life. He established a scholarship fund to help young people from rural areas access addiction treatment, naming it the Jake Morrison Foundation for Authentic Recovery. Jake taught me that recovery isn't about becoming a different person, Matthew said in a 2010 interview. It's about becoming the person you really are. Underneath all the fear and shame and chemical dependencies, he saw me as just Matt, another guy trying to get clean, and that's the most valuable gift anyone has ever given me. Their friendship lasted until Matthew's death in 2023, spanning more than 2 decades and multiple challenges, celebrations, and life transitions. Jake spoke at Matthew's memorial service, describing their relationship as a reminder that the most meaningful connections often happen in unexpected places between unlikely people. Matt taught me that friendship doesn't care about fame or money or status, Jake said through tears. It cares about honesty, loyalty, and showing up for each other when things get hard. Room 247 at Promises gave us both a second chance at life, but more than that, it gave us each other, and that made all the difference. The story of Matthew Perry and Jake Morrison isn't just about celebrity and addiction. It's about the power of authentic human connection to transform lives and sustain recovery. It's about how sometimes the most important relationships begin with the simplest questions. Hey roommate, what's your story?